my name is Julie Walker, knee Pierce from Kenilworth. I was the youngest ever councillor for Widgee Shire, for Widgee Shire, and we went through amalgamation to form Gympie Shire Council, and then later on there was another amalgamation of Gympie Shire, Shire, and part thereof to take in Curragh country. So the 2.5 councils amalgamated. So I was on council for 2 amalgamations, so that was a really tiresome time. Putting all the plans together, having new local area plans and all other bits and pieces, it was just really difficult times, but I totally enjoyed it. I started out, I was born in Kenilworth. My great-grandfather, he selected a parcel of land at Oakey Creek Road at Gerella, and my grandfather, Jack Pierce, he selected a property at the end of Warlow Creek Road at Kenilworth, which my father, Stanley James Pierce, bought in turn. And then when I left school at 15 and went to work at the Kraft Foods factory at Kenilworth. Kraft Foods now is Kenilworth Dairies. So I actually worked in the office as the clerk typist at the factory. So that was exciting. And then my sister introduced me to her brother-in-law, her husband's brother, and we sort of hit it off. We ended up getting married in 1977, and we moved into a house that was on Gary's brother's farm, a pineapple farm at Imbil on Barsby Road. We had a daughter, Kellyanne, a son, Corey, a 3-year break, and then a son, Darren, and a daughter, Leanne. So we had 4 children in 5 years. And I just always wanted, as from a child, I wanted to be married with lots and lots of children. But Gary was from a family of 11, and he said, oh, no, 2 will be plenty. And I went, no, I got my 4. So I was very fortunate. And after the little one went off to preschool, I was bored silly. I had to do something. So I did a course with learning real estate. And learning and practicing are 2 different things. So a job came up with Warden Francis in Gympie. I put my hand up and I went in for an interview, and I think I convinced Dan Atherton to employ me to make sales out in the Mary Valley. Having known the Mary Valley so well and related to a quarter of the people out there, he thought it was a good idea. So I started there selling real estate. And Gary supported me for the first 1.5 years until I made my first sale. From there on, it's history. I ended up in Karoi, and then I opened my own office in Imbil called Mary Valley Real Estate. And we enjoyed it, and we got so busy that Gary came and worked for me. It was funny because people would come in and they'd naturally sit in front of Gary because, well, he's the man, he must be the boss, and he'd say, she's the boss, not me. So that was really good. And selling real estate with people working for me, I was a little at odds, didn't quite fulfil that space inside me. I decided that maybe Gary should run for council, and he went, I don't want to run for council. If you want it so badly, you do it. So I did. The first election in 1991 was on to Widgee Shire. I won that one with 7 votes to spare. And I didn't find out until the Friday that I'd actually won. So I still had my real estate office. I was the youngest woman to be voted onto council, and I was the only woman in 13 councillors. So it was a real big learning curve, and it took a little while to settle in, and I discovered the best way to treat the old guys. Some of them were quite old at that stage. I'm probably like me now, but anyhow, I was with Clive Colburn in that division, and Clive taught me a lot of what I know. So to me, I just treated him like I would my father, with respect, learn what he had to put forward and take out of that what I wanted, but still being an individual. So with that in mind, we did have some big battles. Back in the day, they were battles, stand up, almost fisticuffs over things. You know, these days, you don't see that. Back in those days, there was name calling, all sorts. The girl at the front with the mayor and the CEO had to write everything longhand. There was no, oh, well, shorthand, I should say. There were no recordings, there was no computer. And it would all have to go then and be typed up. We all had microphones. So they recorded everything and then they printed it up and you would get reams of paper. And so we had to read it all. And I still have quite a bit at home because it's just for posterity. And, you know, you draw all over it. And then they brought in later on the computers. So I got a laptop at home and it's like, I want to draw all over it and write notes. And they had to teach me how to write notes. So I've learnt through real estate and through council, I've learnt a lot about technology. Mobile phones back in the day were the big brick, you know. It was really quite an ordeal to carry that around. I remember driving around and my children would ring me and I'm trying to be all professional and it's like, oh, excuse me for a moment. Press the button. Mum, where are you? Sorry about that. I'll be home soon. So I spend a lot of time on the road. My car was my office because running a real estate office and having 4 children at home and being on council, it was a bit of a handful. But you learn to do things. I was on so many committees, going to so many openings and dinners and all sorts that we have to pay for, by the way. People think you get all that for nothing. No, you have to pay for it all. And the children, I was asked one night, you and Gary not together? Why? We never see you together. Where's Gary? I said, somebody has to stay home and look after the children. I've got 4. They don't look after themselves. They were quite young and they were going through their teenage years. You can imagine 4 teenagers for 2 years in a row. People get all stressed out with teenagers. No, you just have to know. You have to think like them. And so there's a lot of housework, there's a lot of business, there's sorting all the trust accounts and everything as well as, you know, all the council as well. And after a while, I wanted to focus more on council and less on real estate. Somebody walked in the office one day and wanted to know what businesses was for sale. And I just said, this one. And I went home and Gary went, no, you can't. I said, well, I need to focus on what my passion is, and my passion is council. So after a bit of to and fro and debating, we decided, yes, we'll go ahead with it. So I sold the real estate office because when you're in council and a planning decision comes up and you have the property for sale, you can't stay in the meeting. You're locked out of so many decisions that it made life really difficult. And there are a lot of other decisions as well with rentals and people's personalities and knowing people's backgrounds. And you just have to walk out. So you can't stay there. So that was always interesting. So I decided to sell the office and be 100% council. I remember going into the first Meet the Councillor night out at, I think it was Gympie. We're in the hall. There would have been like 1,000 people because at that time, when they amalgamated Gympie, Tyro and Kilkheven, there were no divisions. So when you got onto council, you represented the whole council. So we went out to Gympie and stood up in front of all those people and presented. And they gave us 3 minutes. So they had a bell. And so I got up there and started rabbiting on about myself. And they rang the bell. It's like, I'm not finished yet. just let me keep going. I've got so much to tell you. So I don't have a problem public speaking. I've been involved with fundraisers. The pavilion, for instance, we had a big fundraiser with a fellow called, I think his last name was Steer. He had a company that professionally raised money. And I was on the committee to raise that money for the pavilion. And he was quite impressed with how I talked to people, how I presented. So he asked me to go to Maryborough and talk to the people up there for the Moncrief Theatre. So that was a real feather in my cap. There's a lot going on with when you're in council, and I could really do things for the Mary Valley. I was instrumental, along with Rob Priebe, and getting the road sealed to Kenilworth, from Bruloo through to Kenilworth. It's a main road, so it's a state government road. So we didn't have to put money forward, but we discussed it and said, if we don't help, it will never be done. It's such a long stretch of road. So we got together with the government and we said, if we put in $100,000 a year for 3 years, will you do it? And back then it was a lot of money. And so they did. And that's how come the road from Bruloo to Kenilworth is sealed. Our little car, when Gary was courting me, knew that road really well, and it was all dirt. So very dusty car. So that was a big thing. Stopping the Traveston Dam. I was on council when the dam was stopped. And I remember Gary and I went on a holiday. We were out at Uluru. We were on our way to Uluru. We stopped over at Alice Springs. And when I got there, there was a flurry going on that Peter Garrett was staying at that resort. And I had to meet him because I wanted him to stop this dam. And so I did get to meet him in a flurry in one of the corridors. And he said, I'll be back here tonight at 9. I'll talk to you then. Gary and I waited and waited and waited. He didn't turn up. I ended up with a migraine. Went back to the room. I got out the little notepad that's in the room and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. And I just wrote for like 3 hours, put all my feelings, all my frustrations onto paper. And Gary kept saying, would you just stop it and get to bed? You're not feeling well. I can't, I have to do this. So I got all my feelings out. I put it in an envelope, wrote on it very professionally, walked down to the foyer the next morning to the desk, and I just walked up and said, oh, good morning. Mr. Garrett's just waiting for this. Could you hand this to him, please? And we walked off and Gary said, how did you do that? I said, well, I don't know to this day whether he got that letter. I sincerely hope that he did, because being such a long-term Mary Valley resident, being on council, being family, I was just so upset that they were going to ruin our valley. When years before we had taken the government up to Lake Barumba, stood on the wall of Lake Barumba and said, this is the place, the ideal place for a dam extension. They own all the land. They own the whole lot. People that are there are leasing it back. They could just extend the wall 25 metres, lovely. But no, somebody had a rush of blood. Might have wanted to call it the whatever dam or lake whatever. But anyhow, it was exciting. It was knocked on the head in the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. And it was so much a thrill to have that knocked on the head. And we got a nice big road from the valley to the highway in place of it. I think that was a payback, but we don't know. I don't know for sure. Something happened there. But, and we also got a nice big service centre out there, being the Traveston Service Centre. So a lot of jobs for the Mary Valley, I hope. I also had part in the train. So the decision to turn the Mary Valley line into a tourist attraction was myself and Adrian McClintock, and because Adrian grew pineapples at Dagan. And Adrian, as you know, was the chairman of Widgee, and he was also on Shire, and we both fought to get that. I was the Deputy Chair of the Mary Valley Heritage Committee, Mary Valley Heritage Rail Committee for 13 years. And so I had my children come in with me to the train, clean seats, wash walls, scrub floors, out to the stations, weeding gardens, mowing lawns. My children also helped build things. They volunteered in there as well. We had a major part in that. Gary, my husband, he's been out on the line volunteering, putting in sleepers, organising groups of people from the valley to put in sleepers when they fell apart and were washed away in a flood. So he was an integral part of the rail as well. It was very upsetting to me to lose that position of being the vice chair for the rail, but all things have to come to an end. I have done some volunteering for the new look rail. It is very rewarding and I love it. I love to get on the train, tell people my stories about the Mary Valley. It's just wonderful, and yeah, it gives you a great sense of ownership that, you know, this is all part of it. Gary actually works at the Dagon sawmill. He is a sawyer. He's the number one benchman. And every day he pushes saws through a log. When they opened the Woodworkers Museum, they actually asked Gary to go in and operate the big saw because it's so antiquated at his mill that he knows how to operate the really old sawmills. So Gary's been at that sawmill over 33 years and on and off with having children, owning a real estate office, selling a real estate office. So he's always supported me. And 44 years of marriage, people say, so what's the secret? Yeah, it's tolerance. I tolerate him, he tolerates me. So yeah, we are a team that have worked really hard for the Valley. We've both been on the Mary Valley Show Society for over 30 years, and we've seen a lot of changes through the Show Society. I'm also patron with the Lake Burrumba Fish Stocking Group, which used to be called the Lake Burrumba Family Fishing Classic, and we started that off to create interest for tourism in the Mary Valley. The fish stocking group actually get funding from council, state government, other bodies to put fish into the lake, which is great for tourism being my portfolio when I was on council. And it's wonderful to go out on the boat. There's photos that I've supplied, out on the boat with the fingerlings, tipping the fingerlings into the water. It's such a buzz to know that those fingerlings like this big are going to be this big and somebody's going to actually catch it. They have tag fish competitions, they have catch and release, Saratogas and so on, catch and release. So that is really, yeah, it's fun and it's so wonderful for tourism. I love it. And it's really good. So, yeah, there's so much to tell. I was part of the decision-making group to beautify the towns in the Mary Valley. So we started with Imbil. And in Imbil, we have the Yabba Creek recreational area, which is 3 stages. I think only the first stage is done so far. The Centre Park, the Memorial Park in Imbil, has a new rotunda and very nice rotundas to go and sit in and promenade around there. We also did the All Abilities Park and the walkway. It's all planned for future work down onto Yabba Creek, where we have, if people don't know, there are platypus in the creek, and if you're fortunate enough, you can see the platypus. We also had the Anzac Park at Kandanga, all beautified with the statue, with seating and a clock and a ramp, and it's just gorgeous. Along with that was the beautification of Amamore Township, so parking, streetscape and so on. And so that was a lovely part. To play a part in all that was really good. The other thing that I haven't talked about was being involved with heritage. I was the chair of the Gympie Heritage Committee, and Tinkham Bay, Rainbow Beach wanted a museum. Museums cost an absolute fortune because you have to put the building in and da-da-da-da-da. What I decided after a lot of thinking and looking at other things was an interactive computer. So in the libraries at, I'm not sure whether I'm right, but Tinkham Bay, Rainbow Beach, Gameri and Watercombe, I'm hoping, there is an interactive computer where people can sit, go through the people of the area, the development of the area, what farming, what industry went on there. So that was a brainchild of mine and I'm so proud of that. The other thing was the QR codes, plaques, etc. for heritage buildings. We started with Gympie and then worked out from Gympie. So the Timberman's Walk in Imbil is dedicated to all the timber getters around the Mary Valley. My great-grandfather James Pierce is on a springboard on a huge red cedar tree on that Timberman's Walk. So little parts of me are in there. So that is a real, it's really a wonderful thing to have that. So people can promenade along the walkway and look at what happened because Hine and Son it's not Hine and Son anymore, but the two big timber mills in Imbil itself on the Aber Creek Road and Malawandi Mill are such a big employer of people in the valley. So we have lots of people come from all over to work in those mills. So that's wonderful. Pineapples used to be everywhere. It was wonderful to be a part of pineapple farming, helping farmers, to get their produce to wherever it was going. And I've been involved in trying to get the better road systems and improve marketing and all that as well. Well, see, the tourism side of it has to really come to the fore because dairy farms, deregulation knocked a lot of dairy farms out. The pineapple industry, the quota system, just knocked so many pineapple farms out. We used to be able to drive out in the valley and there were pineapple farms everywhere you looked. So we used to be the fruit salad bowl, if you like, for southeast Queensland. And then it just dwindled away because of cheap imports, larger farms and so on. So those areas had to look elsewhere. We had a lot of people come through from the state and federal government talking to the locals about tourism. The one thing that really hurt the valley was the Traveston Dam issue. The government poured so much money in to try and help people redirect their lives. Some people didn't come out of it alive. There were so many suicides in the valley related to the whole debacle of the Traveston Dam. And no amount of money can change that. But tourism, I think, for the Mary Valley has really come to the fore. We have such things as the Tom Quilty that have come to Imbil and the surrounds. We've got the forestry, which is a big bonus. We have all those natural things, Yabba Falls and Lake Barumba, the forests, the rainforests and everything, the long drives, the picnic areas. We have things, the rally where Possum, whatever his name is, used to come out and drive in the rallies. I've actually been around a few of the rally tracks. They're called junkets. We get to go on junkets. Just trying to improve people's perception of what is available to do in the Mary Valley instead of going, I don't know what to do out here. There's so much to do. And with that comes a whole new crowd of people, the influx of newbies into the valley. You either like it or you don't like it. The thing I miss the most about the valley are the people, the older generation who could sit and tell you stories until the cows come home. We lost a beauty in Rob Preby. I spent lots of years on committees and council with Rob. And you think I can tell a story. Rob put me to shame. Rob he could stand up in front of 3,000 people and he would have the whole hall enthralled by his presentation. He's a wonderful person and we've lost Rob. But having moved away I live at the Dawn now, which is still part of Division 8 of the Shire, and I made sure that I was in that division. I am still part of the Merry Valley because I wake up in the morning and I can look at Merry River, I can look right up the valley there and right around to Mother Mountain, get the sunrise in the mornings, and it will always be home to me. I've never lived as close to the Merry River as I do now, and I can't see it because it's down there. One day it'll flood and I will get to see it. But it's just the company of people out there, the way they make you feel at home. When I had a bad crash in 2009, everybody, apart from the man who hit me, everybody that was there, I knew. I knew all the fireys, I knew all the ambulance. They sent one from Pomona, one from Gympie with Wayne Sachs. I knew all of them. I knew all the police officers. I knew all the fireys, the first responders. Loretta from the cafe got into the car, held my hand. Ian from the fireys got in my car in the back seat, held my head up. These people are what the valley is. The people in the valley they wrap around you and make you feel at home and make you feel comfortable and they make you feel important and a part of the area. So, yeah, without all those ideas in the valley, it wouldn't be anything. I know it's a gorgeous place to live, but you need the people.